Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about Native Voices Rising. My name is Dana Arviso, and I serve as a Senior Program Strategist for NVR. I'm also a member of the Navajo Nation and have worked in philanthropy for 15 years. Native Voices Rising is primarily a pooled regranting collaborative that serves as a mechanism to build broad-based philanthropic support for grassroots groups led by and for Native communities. These groups elevate Indigenous solutions to historic harms around environmental, racial, and societal injustices. NVR is uniquely positioned to engage and guide non-Native donors and funders into the opportunity to learn more about and resource Native-led social change work. Central to NVR is a community-led grant-making approach with Native community members, termed NVR community reviewers, empowered to make grant decisions within regional review committees. I'm going to start this presentation with a little bit about why NVR was started in 2013. We're going to dig just a little bit into some of the data. You may have heard the statistic that less than 0.5% of philanthropic giving goes to Native Americans. Let's dig into that number more. However, we also want to offer the caveat that as valuable as these data sets are, we know that there are mistakes within this data that overinflate the number of grants and the percentage of dollars. The following slides on philanthropic giving data feature information from Native Americans in Philanthropy, Candid, and the Philanthropic Initiative for Racial Equity. I want to start by sharing this grant-making data that comes from Candid that was further unpacked in a 2019 report from Native Americans in Philanthropy. From this slide, you can see that 0.4% is the average share of grant dollars that are explicitly benefiting Native Americans over this span of time. Sometimes it has been as high as 0.59% and sometimes as low as 0.3%. The other thing that I want us to notice is the gap between the number of grants and which tends to be higher, and the percentage of dollars, which is lower. What this may reveal is that while there are more grants being awarded, they are smaller in grant size. For this next slide, this is a slide that shows the actual dollars and how those have fluctuated over time during the same grant period. It's been as low as 58 million and as high as 143 million, with a lot of instability across these in this more than 10-year span. I really wish that we could see the data past 2016 and what that might reveal about the current trend. Just a second here, let me advance my slide. Okay, so before we dig into some of the data that comes from the Philanthropic Initiative for Racial Equity, we want to make sure that we know how they are defining the terms of racial equity and racial justice. NVR's definition of Native organizing and supporting grassroots organizing most closely aligns with racial justice work. So I'm just going to highlight a few of those things. So racial justice work understands and acknowledges racial history, shares an affirmative vision for a fair, inclusive society, focuses explicitly on building civic, cultural, economic, and political power by those most impacted. It also emphasizes transformative solutions that impact multiple systems. Okay, so we are going to take a look at PRE's data on funding going towards supporting grassroots organizing. They use the broader category of Indigenous rather than Native American, but we can see that giving trend in kind of the dark olive color. The spike that you see in 2016 can be attributed to the influx of funding to support the Water is Life and No DAPL protest movement and the struggle over water rights. PRE has some excellent analysis on this in their full report, and their takeaway is that while this funding was really impactful, Movement work needs sustained funding and not just one-time surges of funding. I also want to share a little bit more about these giving trends. So this is some data that looks at the small percentage of funding that is going to grassroots organizing across all communities of color. And we can see that even in the funding priority areas of racial equity and racial justice, grassroots organizing is just getting a small sliver of that funding. Now I'm going to share some data that is trending in the right direction. I hope that you'll find these numbers a lot more inspiring. So this is what Native Voices Rising's grant-making data looks like. I just want to share that you'll see the big spike around 3.5 million. For 2024, we are budgeting another 3.5 million with a long-term goal of pooling enough resources so that we can grow our annual grant-making budget to $10 million a year. We are really excited, though, about the way that we've been able to grow NVR. So I'm going to share some of our data over the past 10 years, and we can see what the growth of our grant making has looked like. So in 2013, we started out very modestly with only 32 grants and an average grant size of 6,763. But we grew quickly as we could to meet the demand. And even now, we consistently receive far more applications than we can possibly fund. However, by 2022, we've been able to increase the number of grants to 114 with an average grant size that's $30,702. And we've also been able to extend multi-year grants to a small subset of our grant partners that are among the highest scoring of our applicants. Across these 9 cycles that we have accounted for in this report, we've been able to give out more than $9 million across these years. One interesting trend I want to share from this subset of data is that you might notice that even though we've made 531 grants, we have 190 unique grant partners. This means that many of our current grant partners have received prior grants. Hey, I want to share a little bit about what our model looks like and how we've been able to achieve giving out so much in money across the nation. So we use a model that really centers Native-led philanthropy. We also strengthen the capacity of our Native-led nonprofit partners. We do this through our supportive assistance program. We are growing this Native power building ecosystem through funding the partners that we do. We are also elevating Native-led solutions in philanthropy. So just really trying to catalyze more funding dollars within the philanthropic sector for this Native-led social change work. Another piece that I'd really like to raise up is that our 10-year impact report also includes a set of 8 recommendations. For this particular presentation, I'm going to focus on 3 of these, but I encourage you to visit our website, download the report, and read the full set of recommendations. Okay, so the 3 recommendations that I would like to focus on today is the first one, which is fund grassroots Native-led organizations directly whenever possible. And if not possible, fund trusted Native-led intermediaries. The need for funding grassroots Native-led organizations is still critical. NVR offers philanthropies a means of reaching those small grassroots efforts that most feel they cannot do on their own. Over the past decade, NVR has built a compendium of grant partners that is meant to serve as a starting point to find Native-led groups. As a national funding opportunity, NVR also connects regions across the United States and throughout Indian country and celebrates the diversity, helps equitable distribution of support, and is seeing a ripple effect of changes across the country. We also encourage you to explore ways to increase your own organizational commitment to support Native communities throughout your entire philanthropic strategy, including representation within staff, trustees, your grant review process, and your DEI goals and outcomes. According to Change Philanthropy's 2022 Diversity Among Philanthropic Professionals data, only 3.4% of people working in philanthropy identify either solely as Indigenous or as Indigenous in combination with some other race or ethnicity. Of those respondents, 0.9% identified solely as Indigenous. Native Americans in Philanthropy has further unpacked this data in their 2024 Indigenous Philanthropic Professionals Report to really understand this data by age, gender identity, foundation type, workforce size, and region. Along with other Native-led foundations, institutional funders are encouraged to invest in building up their internal capacity to foster strong and trusting relationships by explicitly including Native Americans as a population group within your organization's diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. There is a dire need for more Native representation at all levels within philanthropic organizations, including particularly at the program officer, senior leadership, and trustee levels, in order to better understand and address how Native communities have been impacted by colonization and to build stronger relationships. We also encourage you to commit to advancing equity in philanthropy by creating current baselines of your Native American staff and trustees, and then to set goals and strategies for how to increase this representation within your foundation. While advancing DEI goals within your foundation, it's also important to ensure that the national grant-making data that captures Native American giving data and trends accurately. Giving statistics can get easily conflated, often seen through the double counting of self-reported regional and national data, and failing to distinguish between Native-led organizations over organizations that may serve Native Americans as part of their larger mission. This data integrity is important to provide an accurate baseline from which to measure change. Lastly, we want you to deepen your organizational learning by engaging in meaningful efforts to understand how to resource Native-led organizations. NVR has evolved as a demonstration project for funders to build trust in Native communities and learn how to best support Native communities with funding dollars. This past decade of work has created a strong track record of NVR being a trusted intermediary that can bridge relationships and learnings with Native-led groups and non-Native funders and donors. However, there are still opportunities for funders and donors to deepen their organizational learning and commitment to Native communities with continued learning and inquiry in support of grassroots community organizing, advocacy, and systemic change work. Towards this end, Native Voices Rising launched a Funder Learning Fellowship in January 2024 for institutional funders who are looking to deepen their support for Native-led work and change efforts. This program helps to build tangible skills to support Native-led work with philanthropic institutions, gain a better understanding about the work happening across Native communities, and to promote peer learning with other funders who want to deepen their support and learning around Native communities. I thank you so much for listening to this presentation. Please reach out to me or my team for more information. My email is dana@commoncouncil.org. And again, I encourage you to visit our website for the full list of our grant partners, research reports, including the 10-year impact report, and how you can support our work. You can find us at nativevoicesrising.org. Thank you so much.